On the morning of Saturday, the 27th of March, 2027, at 8:43 Eastern Standard Time, my husband, Stephen Reeves, sat across from me at the oak round breakfast table in the kitchen of our 1948 Cape Cod house on Bird Avenue in West Newton, Massachusetts, drinking dark coffee and reading the Boston Globe Saturday morning paper. He was wearing a charcoal gray pullover. I was wearing a navy blue cardigan over a white blouse. The radiator under the window ticked twice and went quiet. Stephen turned to the second section of the paper and stopped on a one-year anniversary retraction news article covering the December 2025 settlement between the United States Department of Justice and a Boston-area Harvard-affiliated cancer center. He read aloud a fragment of the original retraction notice quoted in the article without lifting his eyes. He said, "Paul, did you read this? Some compliance person in Cambridge took down a whole lab. The retraction notice says the corresponding author was not aware of the source of the figure data at the time of submission. Imagine that. 18 months of figure data and you do not know where it came from." I had a Mitutoyo Series 530 dial caliper in my right hand under the table. I had been using it earlier that week to measure the doorframe of our daughter Helena's new studio apartment near Tufts Medical Center. I said, in a voice that was neither flat nor rehearsed, "I did read it." Stephen raised his eyes from the paper. He looked at me across the table. He had not made the connection until that second. He said, Was that one of yours? You worked on that one." I said, "It was one of mine, yes." Stephen put the paper down. He looked at me for 9 seconds. He said, "Paul, I did not realize." I said, "I did not tell you. I am sorry." He said, "You did not have to be sorry. Of course you did not have to be sorry." We sat at the table for 48 seconds without speaking. He picked up his coffee. He drank. He put the coffee down. He said, "Was that the one Cass was on?" I said, "It was, yes." Stefan said, "Okay." We did not say anything else. He picked up the paper. He turned the page. The breakfast continued. My right hand under the table closed around the Mitutoyo caliper for the smallest fraction of a second and then opened again. The recognition was shared and held without being processed. That is how it ended at our kitchen table. That is not how it began. My name is Paulette Marissa Szymanski Reeves. I am 51 years old. I am a senior research compliance officer at a Harvard-affiliated cancer center in the Longwood medical area of Boston, 18 continuous years from May of 2008 through April of 2024, when my title was changed without my consent and I was moved to a sub-basement office on floor B2 next to the building's mechanical equipment plant. I am Polish-American second generation. My father, Tadeusz Stanislaw Szymanski, walked across the Atlantic Ocean in November of 1971 with a Pan-American World Airways ticket from Warsaw through London Heathrow to John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York. He was 27 years old. He had one canvas suitcase, a folded letter of sponsorship from the Lutheran World Relief, Boston Pipeline Coordinator Mrs. Helena Kowalczyk-Jankowski, and 187 United States dollars in his wallet. He stood at a precision turning lathe at the General Electric Aviation Lynn, Massachusetts engine plant for 38 years. He retired with full union pension at the age of 66 in March of 2010. He is alive in 2026 at the age of 82. He walks with a slight limp from a 1987 lathe bed accident that took the second knuckle of his left index finger. He told me one thing 6 different ways for the entirety of my life. "Paul, you measure twice, you cut once, you do not need to apologize for that." He said it in Polish, inflected, unaccented English. He said it in Polish when he was tired, or when the phrase had worn smoother in his ear. Mierz 2 razy, tnij raz, nie trzeba przepraszać. He said it on every Sunday afternoon at the kitchen table in the 3rd floor unit of the Tower Hill brick triple-decker on Park Street in Lawrence, Massachusetts, where my older sister Jadwiga and my older brother Maciej and my younger brother Casimir and I grew up. He said it when I brought home a measurement from a Smith College biology lab. He said it when I brought home a torts outline from Suffolk Law Evening School. He said it the morning of my cancer center hire interview. I am here to tell you that I measured twice for 3 years, and that the measurement was correct. My father was born in Białystok, Poland, in February of 1944, 4 months before the Soviet army arrived from the east, and 7 months before the Nazi withdrawal westward. He grew up in a post-war industrial town, where everything that had been measured before the war had to be measured again afterward. He completed a 4-year program in precision tool and die work at the Białystok Technical School in 1962. He worked for 9 years at a state-owned tractor parts factory before he applied through the Lutheran World Relief Boston Pipeline. The sponsorship coordinator, Mrs. Halina Kowalczyk-Jankowski, herself a Polish refugee from Krakow who had arrived in 1947, met him at John F. Kennedy on the 8th of November, 1971. She drove him to a rented room in the home of a Lutheran congregation member in Lawrence, Massachusetts, the city where the Polish-American Tower Hill section had been built up by 3 generations of mill workers and machinists and seamstresses. He sat at her kitchen table and ate his first meal in the United States, a bowl of bigos with rye bread, prepared by Mrs. Kowalczyk-Jankowski's mother. He worked his first 3 months at a small machine shop in the Stoughton Industrial District. By February of 1972, he had been hired by General Electric Aviation Lynn as a junior precision lathe operator. He wore a blue work coverall, safety goggles, and steel-toed boots. The small steel Mitutoyo Series 530 dial caliper that he carried in his right-hand pocket every working day for 38 years was issued to him by his floor supervisor on his first morning. He polished the caliper with a chamois cloth on Sunday evenings while we watched the New England Patriots on the small television in the living room of the Tower Hill triple-decker. My mother, Elżbieta Christina Szymanski, was born in Lawrence, Massachusetts, on the 17th of October, 1949, to Polish immigrant parents who had arrived in 1947 through the same Lutheran World Relief Boston Pipeline. Her parents had been farmers near Lublin before the war. They settled in the Tower Hill brick triple-decker neighborhood, and they did not move out of it for the rest of their lives. My mother graduated from Lawrence High School in 1967. She married my father on the 28th of January, 1972, 3 weeks after his arrival in the United States. The arrangement had been made between her mother and his mother through letters across 2 continents in 1969. The 2 of them had not met in person before the wedding day. There were 41 guests in the basement fellowship hall of the St. Mary of the Assumption Polish Catholic Church on Common Street in Lawrence. They moved into the 3rd-floor unit of the Tower Hill triple-decker on Park Street in February. My oldest brother Casimir, whom we always called Cass, was born on the 23rd of November, 1969. My older sister Jadwiga was born in March of 1970. My older brother Maciej was born in April of 1973. I was born last, in October of 1975. Cass was 6 years older than me. He was the engineer in the family. The other 3 of us were practical kids. Cass was the one who did the calculations. He was the one who took the gauge from our father's hand and read it without asking. The Tower Hill kitchen had a formica yellow countertop and lace curtains over the sink. My father came home from GE Lynn on Friday evenings at 6:14, hung his blue coverall on the hook by the back door, washed his hands at the sink for 90 seconds, and sat in the wooden kitchen chair at the head of the table. My mother set the table with the green and gold-rimmed dinner plates that her mother had brought from Lublin in 1947. We ate bigos on Friday and pierogies on Sunday, and on the 3rd Saturday of every month, my mother made fresh kielbasa from the Polish butcher on Common Street. My father's nightly axiom was delivered whenever any of the 4 children brought a school project to the kitchen table. Pole, you measure twice, you cut once, you do not need to apologize for that. He said it without ceremony. He said it the way a precision lathe operator reads a drawing print. He said it because in the world he had been taught, the consequence of measuring once was a part that did not fit, and a foreman who docked your pay. The consequence of measuring twice was the part that fit, and a foreman who let you go home at the end of your shift. He never said it as a parable. It was not a parable to him. It was the description of his afternoon. In the autumn of 1989, when I was 14 and Cass was 20, my father transferred from the GE Aviation Lynn main floor to a Stoughton supplier shop. The transfer required a move. My parents bought a small white 1968 ranch house on West Street in Brockton, Massachusetts. We left the Tower Hill triple-decker. My mother kept the keys to the third-floor unit in a glass jar on the windowsill of the West Street kitchen, and after my parents retired in 2009, they returned to Tower Hill and have not moved since. I attended Brockton High School from September of 1989 through May of 1993. I attended Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts from August of 1993 through May of 1997. I majored in biology with a minor in Russian language. I had taken Russian because the Polish family inheritance would have been the easy choice, and I wanted, at 20, to have an academic discipline that did not feel like a continuation of the Tower Hill kitchen. I graduated on the 18th of May, 1997. My father gave me the small steel Mitutoyo Series 530 dial caliper that he had carried at GE Lynn for 25 years on the morning of the graduation ceremony in the parking lot of the John M. Green Hall before we walked across the lawn. He said, "Pole, you measure twice, you cut once. You do not need to apologize for that." He pressed the caliper into my right hand. I have kept the caliper in the upper left drawer of every desk I have used since. I will tell you about the desk where the caliper sat for 16 years, and the desk where it sat for the last 8 months, and the desk where it sits today. I attended the Tufts University School of Medicine Masters of Science program in bioethics from September of 1999 through May of 2001. I worked as a research compliance coordinator at a Boston University Medical Center grants management office from June of 2001 through April of 2008. I attended Suffolk University Law School Evening Division from September of 2005 through May of 2009, taking 3 classes per semester while I worked full-time. I earned my Juris Doctor on the 17th of May, 2009, on the same lawn where I had received my Smith degree, in a graduation ceremony that ran 4 hours long. I was hired by the Cancer Center as a Senior Research Compliance Officer in May of 2008, a year before I finished my law degree, into the Office of Research Integrity, with primary responsibility for 45 Code of Federal Regulations Part 94, Research Misconduct Intake, and National Institutes of Health Grants Policy Statement Section 8.4, Research Integrity Terms of Award. I earned the Certified Compliance and Ethics Professional International Credential in 2010 and the Certified Research Administrator Credential in 2012. I married Stephen Reeves, a math teacher who was then teaching at Brockton High School, on the 14th of June, 2002, in the same St. Mary of the Assumption Polish Catholic Church Basement Fellowship Hall where my parents had been married 30 years earlier. Our daughter, Helena Tadeuszka Reeves, was born on the 2nd of August, 2003. Our son, Stephen Reeves Jr., was born on the 11th of January, 2007. We bought the 1948 Cape Cod on Bird Avenue in West Newton in November of 2007. We paid off the mortgage in June of 2018. In October of 2017, Cass presented to Mount Auburn Hospital in Cambridge with painless jaundice and 20 pounds of weight loss over 6 months. He was diagnosed on the 16th of October, 2017, with metastatic adenocarcinoma of the pancreas, stage 4, head of pancreas with hepatic and peritoneal metastases. The median survival prognosis at diagnosis was 6 to 11 months. He began standard of care FOLFIRINOX at Mount Auburn in November. He tolerated it poorly. In late November, he was referred to the Cancer Center for Phase 2 clinical trial enrollment evaluation. On the 14th of December 2017, Cass signed the informed consent for trial CHCC 2017 PDAC 019, open January of 2017, predicated on a paper published in the journal Cell in 2016 by the Halverson-Choudhury Laboratory at the Cancer Center. I was a Senior Research Compliance Officer that December. I had been in the role 9 years. I read NIH grants for a living. I knew 45 CFR Part 94 by heart. I did not look at the Cell 2016 paper that month. I had no reason to. The trial was through informed consent. It was through Institutional Review Board. It was through Clinical Trial Registry. The system was running. Cass trusted the system. I trusted the system. The system did not deserve the trust at the level we gave it. Cass received the experimental compound at subtherapeutic plasma concentrations consistent with the protocol's planned dose escalation arm, 2A, from the 8th of January through the 22nd of October, 2018. He had stable disease for 4 months, from March through July. Progression began in August. On the 23rd of October, he transitioned to McLean Hospice on Mill Street in Belmont, Massachusetts. He died at 4:14 in the morning on the 8th of November, 2018, with my father and my mother and my husband Stefan and my sister Jadwiga and my brother Maciej and my daughter Helena, who was 16, and my son Stefan Jr., who was 11, at his bedside. He was cremated on the 12th of November. His ashes were interred at Mount Auburn Cemetery on Mount Auburn Street in Cambridge, Section R, Lot 47, on the 14th of November. The bronze plaque on the granite floor marker reads, Casimir Jan Szymanski, 1969 to 2018, brother, uncle, son, do not number what you can measure. The closing line is a paraphrase of an aphorism Cass himself wrote in the margin of his MIT thesis defense notes in 1996. On Wednesday, the 7th of October 2020, at 11:42 in the morning, I sat at my desk in my floor 4 office at the Cancer Center, conducting a routine grant renewal review for one of the Halverson-Choudhury Laboratories' National Institutes of Health R21 applications. The grant application was a renewal that would go to NIH study section in early 2021. The floor 4 office had one window facing the Charles River, a small framed photograph of my parents at my Brockton High School 1993 graduation, a single small ceramic mug from Smith College, class of 1997, and the Mitutoyo caliper open in the upper left desk drawer. I read the figure pages systematically. I read them slowly. I was on Figure 3, Panel B of the application's referenced, Cell, 2016 paper. I had seen Figure 3, Panel B before. I had seen it 3 months earlier, in July, in a different grant application, from a different principal investigator, in a different laboratory at the Cancer Center, with a different caption. The caption in the October application read, Post-treatment, 24 hours, 100 nanomolar compound C. The caption I had read in July had read, Pre-treatment, baseline, vehicle control. The Western blot panel itself was identical, pixel for pixel. The lane spacing was identical. The molecular weight ladder positions were identical. The loading control band intensity was identical. The ECL exposure pattern was identical. I closed the laptop at 11:42. I walked to the Cancer Center cafeteria on floor 1. I bought a black coffee and a granola bar. I returned to my floor 4 office. I did not raise the issue with the principal investigator that morning. I did not raise the issue with my supervisor that morning. I opened my personal Lenovo ThinkPad at home in West Newton that evening. I reopened the cached PDF of the Cell 2016 paper from my PubMed access. I put Figure 3, Panel B, side by side with the same panel as it appeared in the October 2020 grant application. I zoomed in on the gel band edges. I measured pixel distance with an ImageJ macro I had downloaded from a Yale Bioethics open courseware page that summer. The two panels were not similar. They were bit for bit identical, modulo the surrounding caption text, and a small contrast adjustment to the panel's bottom left quadrant. At 12:14 in the morning, on the 8th of October 2020, I opened a new manila folder. I wrote on the front in black Sharpie marker, Cell 2016, Fig 3 Panel B, Duplication Analysis, October 2020. I underlined the second line. This was the first folder. I did not yet know it would become 17 folders in a SentrySafe SF63944 drawer fireproof file cabinet that I had not yet purchased. I closed the laptop at 12:31. I did not tell Stefan that night. I did not tell Stefan that month. I told Stefan in March of 2021 when I opened the second folder. I did not tell Stefan the full scope until December of 2025 when the Department of Justice press release landed on the Lenovo at the kitchen table. In the second quarterly compliance briefing of 2020, I raised the matter inside the institutional record. I used neutral language. I did not name the Cell 2016 paper. I did not name the Halverson-Choudhury Laboratory. I did not name the principal investigator on either of the 2 grant applications I had cross-referenced. The formulation I used in the briefing draft was a single line in the second quarter compliance update. Ongoing internal forensic review of figure integrity across institutional publications, 2014 to present. The Director of Research Compliance, Dr. Dolan Pierce Tremblay, who had been my direct supervisor since 2017, returned the briefing draft 3 days later with no edits on that line. He returned it again in the third quarter of 2020 with no edits. He returned it again in the first quarter of 2021 with no edits. In the fourth quarter of 2023, after I had added the same line for the 13th consecutive briefing across 13 consecutive quarters, he returned the briefing with 3 handwritten edits in blue ink on the margin, asking that I soften the language regarding ongoing internal forensic review of figure integrity. I read the marginal note at my floor 4 desk on a Thursday afternoon at 4:16. I did not respond in writing. I revised the line in the next quarterly briefing to read, "Research integrity review activities continuing." I did not revise the underlying work. The work was in 17 manila folders in the Sentry safe in West Newton. The work was not in the institutional record. The Halverson-Choudhury Laboratory occupied the east wing of the 3rd floor of the Cancer Center Research Tower at the corner of Longwood Avenue and Brookline Avenue in Boston. The laboratory had been founded in 1992 by Dr. Linnea Halverson-Choudhury. By 2024, it was the largest single principal investigator laboratory in the Cancer Center, occupying 9,400 square feet of bench space and pulling in approximately $6.4 million per year of NIH grant funding. Halverson-Choudhury had been the president and CEO of the Cancer Center since 2017. She was 64 years old in 2024. She was named senior corresponding author on the Cell 2016 paper that became the predicate publication for CAS's Phase 2 trial, and on a Nature Medicine 2019 paper, and on 3 of the 6 NIH grants where Western blot duplications later appeared. The Cancer Center's 6 laboratories, under 3 named senior leaders, were responsible for the publication record I systematically reviewed between October of 2020 and June of 2023. The 3 named senior leaders were Halverson-Choudhury, the Chief Operating Officer Dr. Boon-Jin Lim Whitlock, 58, Stanford MD PhD, 1997, and the Senior Vice President for Translational Research, Dr. Aravinda Madhavan Sturmwell, 61, Johns Hopkins MD PhD, 1992. None of the 3 of them had personally executed an image manipulation at the bench. The manipulation had been executed at the postdoctoral fellow and graduate student level under their named senior corresponding authorship. The violation was the senior author's NIH-imposed responsibility for figure integrity and grant attestation. NIH Grants Policy Statement Section 8.4 explicitly assigns responsibility for figure integrity to the senior corresponding author, regardless of who produced the image at the bench. The 3 of them had spent 15 to 25 years building the prestige capital that the institution monetized through NIH grant flow. None of the 3 of them had personally re-verified a published Western blot panel against its original raw TIFF source file at any point in any of those 15 to 25 years. I reviewed 412 published papers from the 6 laboratories between October of 2020 and June of 2023. I cross-referenced each paper against PubPeer comment threads. I cross-referenced each paper against Retraction Watch entries. I cross-referenced each paper against the open image anomaly flags raised by external scientific sleuths, including the public flags raised by a retired molecular biologist in Cardiff, Wales, named Dr. Hugh Llewellyn-Hartwell, who runs a small public PubPeer review project from his home study. I never contacted Dr. Llewellyn-Hartwell. I used his public flags as one of 7 independent triangulating signals. 23 of the 412 papers came up flagged for deeper review. 14 of the 23 were subsequently confirmed by ImageJ pixel-level forensic analysis to contain duplicated, rotated, mirrored, or contrast-inverted Western blot panels, relabeled with different experimental conditions. 47 Western blot panels across the 14 papers were positively identified. 6 NIHR-01 and R21 and P01 grants, totaling approximately $48 million of federal funding between 2014 and 2024, had cited at least one of the 14 disputed papers as a key publication output in their progress reports or renewal applications. None of this work was on the Cancer Center IT laptop I used at my floor 4 desk during the day. All of it was on a personal Lenovo ThinkPad on a consumer Wi-Fi network in the finished basement of our West Newton Cape Cod, behind a closed door, with the SentrySafe SF6394 cabinet 10 feet to my left. I purchased the SentrySafe SF6394 4-drawer fireproof file cabinet on Saturday the 13th of February, 2021, with cash at the Home Depot on Center Street in West Roxbury, Massachusetts. I drove the cabinet home in the back of the dark blue Subaru Forester. I carried the cabinet down the basement stairs into the finished basement home office, set it on the linoleum floor in the corner under the small window, and waited until Stefan was at the high school for an after-school math department meeting before I screwed the bottom flange to the floor joist with 4 3/8-inch lag bolts. I have never moved it since. The 17 manila folders in the SentrySafe are organized by paper and laboratory. The first folder is the October 2020 Cell 2016 Figure 3 Panel B duplication folder. The 14th folder, completed in February of 2024, is the cross-laboratory image substitution folder, which contains the most damaging single finding of the entire analysis. A Western blot panel originally generated in the Halverson-Choudhury Laboratory in 2013 was reused without attribution as the loading control panel in a 2021 cancer cell paper from the Mudhaven-Sturmwell Laboratory studying a separate molecular target. The pixel-level signature of the panel is identical across the 2 papers. The 2 papers do not cite each other. They describe 2 separate experimental systems. They were submitted by 2 separate principal investigators 4 years apart. The work was invisible to the Cancer Center. My floor 4 desk during the day showed compliance officer routine, grant renewal review forms, standard data management system database queries, institutional review board liaison correspondence, quarterly compliance briefing drafts. Twice a year, I attended the Boston Society for Bioethics quarterly seminars at the Joseph B. Martin Conference Center on Longwood Avenue. I sat in the second row. I asked 1 or 2 questions per session. I wore a navy suit and my mother's gold cross. I did not raise the figure integrity work in any seminar. I did not raise it with my colleagues over coffee. I did not raise it with Dolan Pierce Tremblay. I added a single line of neutral institutional record into each quarterly briefing for 13 consecutive quarters and revised it once, in the 4th quarter of 2023, to softer language that preserved the paper trail without provoking a confrontation. Stefan knew, in general terms, that I was working on a long project at home. He did not ask the questions that would have required me to answer them. He understood that I would tell him when there was something to tell. I told him in March of 2021 when I opened the second folder. The conversation was 40 seconds long. I told him there was a Cancer Center research integrity matter I was documenting at home, that it would take some years, that I would not be discussing it at the Cancer Center, and that I would not be discussing it in detail at home. He said, "Okay." I did not tell him the full scope until December of 2025, when the press release landed on the Lenovo at the kitchen table. He understood the timing. He did not ask me why I had not told him sooner. We have been married 24 years. He knew why. The technical toolkit I taught myself between 2020 and 2023 came from Yale Bioethics Open Courseware modules, the ImageJ user manuals available through the National Institutes of Health Public Software Library, the Vector Magic open source documentation, the error level analysis tutorials posted by independent forensic image researchers, and a small handful of academic publications on image hash signatures for scientific publication forensics. I taught myself ImageJ macro scripting on weekends in the spring of 2021. I taught myself error level analysis in the summer of 2022. I taught myself image hash comparison in the autumn of 2022. I generated forensic signatures for 47 Western blot panels between October of 2022 and February of 2024. I generated NIH Reporter and iSearch grant publication cross-references for 6 NIH grants in the spring of 2023. I generated CMS Open Payments Sunshine Act database cross-references, establishing pharmaceutical industry consulting payments to Halverson-Choudhury and Madhavan Sturmwell from 2014 through 2024 in the summer of 2023. I built a 4-year case in the corner of a finished basement, in the dim circle of light cast by a single desk lamp, while my husband graded Algebra 2 papers on the kitchen table on the floor above me. On Friday, the 14th of November, 2023, at 4:30 in the afternoon, I attended the Boston Society for Bioethics quarterly seminar at the Joseph B. Martin Conference Center on Longwood Avenue. The session ended at 4:27. I stood in the marble lobby for 15 minutes with 2 compliance officer colleagues from peer Boston area institutions, drinking coffee from a paper cup. A third colleague, a professional acquaintance who knew both me and a retired senior research scientist named Adelaide Lichtenberg Fixe, walked over to me at 4:42. She said, in a voice deliberately quiet, "Adelaide is interested in talking with you about something. She asked me to let you know." I nodded. I did not ask the third colleague to elaborate. I did not press for context. I returned to West Newton that evening, and I did not tell Stefan. 3 weeks later, on Saturday the 9th of December, 2023, at 2:14 in the afternoon, I parked the dark blue Subaru Forester on Beacon Street in Brookline, 2 blocks east of the small cafe called Cafe Fixe. I walked the 2 blocks. I entered the cafe. I saw Adelaide sitting alone in a booth in the back, against the brick wall, beneath a small, framed black and white photograph of an unrelated 1940s Boston street scene. She was wearing a heavy charcoal gray wool coat, a navy blue knit hat, no makeup, white hair pulled back into a low bun. She did not stand. She did not extend a hand. I sat across from her on the wooden bench. There was a small, unmarked manila envelope on the table in front of her, taped shut on 3 edges with brown packing tape. She placed her right hand on top of the envelope. She slid the envelope across the wooden table to me. Her hand left the envelope. I placed my right hand on top of the envelope. She did not order coffee. I did not order coffee. She said in a German-accented English she had not lost in 50 years of living in Brookline. "I have spent 18 years wishing I had had the courage to do this. You will not need to find me again. The hard drive is encrypted. The password is on the second to last page of the note." I said, "Thank you, Dr. Lichtenberg Fixe." She nodded once. She stood. She walked out of the cafe through the front door at 2:37. The total elapsed time was 23 minutes. I placed the envelope inside my shoulder bag. I drove home to West Newton. I placed the envelope in the Sentry safe drawer 3 of 4 that evening. I did not open it for 48 hours. When I opened the envelope on Monday the 11th of December, 2023, at 9:14 in the evening, after Stefan had gone to bed, I found 1 external solid-state drive of 2 terabytes capacity, 1 printed and handwritten 47-page note in mixed German and English on lined yellow legal pad paper, dated the 5th of December and signed AML-P, and 1 small, unsealed and resealed brown business card with Adelaide's home address in Brookline crossed out, her email address also crossed out, and the words, "Do not contact me," written below in pencil. I read the 47-page note that night, start to finish, in 3 hours. The note was written in clear narrative German for the first 11 pages, in alternating German and English for pages 12 through 37, and in clear technical English for the final 10 pages. Adelaide had been born in Vienna in 1953, had emigrated as a refugee with her parents to New York in 1957, had received her bachelor's degree from Bryn Mawr in 1975 and her PhD in molecular biology from Columbia in 1981, had completed a Whitehead Institute postdoc from 1981 through 1986, and had served as a senior research scientist in the Halverson-Choudhury Laboratory from 1996 through October of 2014. The note documented the laboratory's transition from rigorous data preservation in the late 1990s to systematic figure integrity erosion in the 2000s. The 2-terabyte SSD contained 213 original, unprocessed Western blot raw TIFF reference files spanning Adelaide's 18-year tenure from 1998 through 2014, with embedded EXIF metadata timestamping original capture date. The note explained where each file came from, who took the original image, what the original experimental context was, and which subsequent published version, if any, the original had been manipulated into. I had the source images for 213 panels. I had the manipulated published versions of 47 of those panels. I had the institutional bridge between the two. The case became unanswerable on the 11th of December, 2023, at 12:14 in the morning, in the corner of my finished basement, with the Mitutoyo Caliper open on the desk beside the Lenovo, and the Sentry Safe drawer 3 of 4 still open behind me. On Monday, the 11th of March, 2024, at 9:34 in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, my supervisor, Dr. Dolan Pierce Tremblay, sent a Zoom calendar invitation to my Cancer Center Outlook calendar. The subject line read, Compliance Portfolio Realignment, Quick Sync. The meeting time was set for Tuesday, the 12th of March at 10 in the morning. The duration was set for 15 minutes. There was no attached agenda. I accepted the invitation at 9:38 without comment. I did not call Stefan. I did not call my sister Jadwiga. I sat at the West Newton kitchen table that evening with the Mitutoyo Caliper open in my hand and read the meeting invitation a second time on the Lenovo. I knew what was coming. I had known since the fourth quarter of 2023 when Dolan returned my routine briefing draft with 3 handwritten edits asking me to soften the language regarding ongoing internal forensic review of figure integrity. The 9:34 invitation was not a surprise. It was a confirmation. I went to bed at 10:14. I did not sleep until 2 in the morning. I lay on my back and listened to the boiler in the basement cycle on twice and cycle off twice. I thought about the 2 banker boxes I would be packing in 2.5 weeks. I thought about the Mitutoyo Caliper in the upper left drawer. I thought about Cass. I did not cry. I did not draft an internal memo. I did not draft the NIHORI Form 1. I held the moment in the dark, and I let it be what it was. On Tuesday, the 12th of March, 2024, at 10 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, I joined the Zoom call from my Floor 4 office. The Zoom video showed Dolan in a navy blue shirt with the top button open, no tie, against a wall of framed certificates. He used a tone of professional warmth. He used the words, fresh angle. He used the phrase, broader latitude. He used lateral evolution. He used honoring your 18 years. He told me that effective the 1st of April, my title would change from Senior Research Compliance Officer to Director of Project Special Initiatives. He told me my portfolio would be redesigned to focus on cross-institutional partnership outreach and emerging compliance frontiers. He told me there were no specific projects listed. He told me I would report directly to him, retain my grade level and salary and benefits, and West Newton work-from-home arrangement 2 days a week, and report to a shared cross-functional workspace on Floor B2 rather than Floor 4. He told me my current portfolio, including NIH grant compliance reviews and 45 CFR Part 94 misconduct intake and research integrity audit, would consolidate under a newly formed Research Integrity Operations team, reporting to a recently hired director named Dr. Patrice Donnelly Corey from MD Anderson Cancer Center. He spoke for 47 of the 51 minutes of the call. I spoke for less than 3 minutes. I thanked him for the conversation. I said, "Thank you, Dolan. I will plan accordingly." The call ended at 10:51. I sat at my floor 4 desk for 43 minutes without opening the laptop. I looked at the small framed photograph of my parents at my Brockton High School 1993 graduation. I looked at the Mitutoyo Caliper in the upper left drawer. At 10:34, I opened my personal Gmail on my phone and drafted the first email to the Boston law firm Brennan, Whitfield, Stoddart-Yu LLP, requesting an intake call with founding partner Brennan, Whitfield, Stoddart-Yu, ex-Department of Justice Civil Division 1981 through 2014, who had filed 8 prior QI-TAM cases against academic medical centers since 2014. I sent the email at 10:47. At 11:18, I began to outline the National Institutes of Health Office of Research Integrity Form 1 misconduct intake filing that I would submit on the 18th of March from my home email through Brennan's firm. I worked at the outline for 2.5 hours. I went home at 5:14. I cooked salmon and rice for dinner with Stefan. I told Stefan, in 8 sentences at the kitchen table, that the Cancer Center was reassigning me effective the 1st of April, that I was being moved to a sub-basement office, that my portfolio was being taken away, that this was the consequence of the 4 years of research integrity work I had been doing at home, and that I was filing a federal misconduct intake the following week. He listened. He did not interrupt. He said, "Okay, Paul." He said, "What do you need from me?" I said, "Nothing tonight." He said, "Okay." We did not say anything else. We finished dinner. We washed the dishes. We watched a half hour of a basketball game on the television in the living room. We went to bed at 10:14. On Friday, the 29th of March, 2024, the last business day before the 1st of April effective date, I packed 4 banker boxes at my floor 4 desk. The boxes contained 18 years of professional files. They did not contain any of the disputed paper-related forensic material. The disputed paper material was on personal equipment in the West Newton basement and in the Sentry safe. I had been careful for 4 years. I had never put any disputed paper analysis on the Cancer Center IT laptop. I left the laptop on my floor 4 desk because it was institutional property. I took a single framed photograph from the desk, my father at a Polish-American picnic in Brockton in 1995, holding the Mitutoyo Caliper in his right hand, and 20-year-old Smith College sophomore me by the shoulder with his left. I took the Mitutoyo Caliper itself. I did not take the small ceramic Smith College mug. I gave it to the office administrative assistant. I rolled the 4 banker boxes one at a time on a small wheeled cart down the floor 4 corridor to the elevator, down to the floor 1 lobby, and across the lobby to the service elevator that runs down to sub-basement floor B2. The service elevator smelled faintly of bleach and motor oil. The elevator ride down to floor B2 took 37 seconds. I had never ridden this elevator before. The floor B2 corridor was approximately 24 feet long, lit by 4 fluorescent tubes humming at the older 60 Hz frequency, with exposed concrete walls painted an institutional cream color and exposed conduit running along the ceiling. My new office was the 3rd door on the right, a repurposed record storage room 9 feet by 11 feet, with no window, a single fluorescent fixture overhead, a small metal desk with a single drawer, a steel case chair, a single gray 4-drawer file cabinet that was empty when I arrived, a single black telephone on the desk, and a Cancer Center IT desktop computer newly issued to me on a separate institutional virtual local area network for which I did not have administrator credentials. The room had previously held archived 2009 through 2014 Institutional Review Board protocol files, which had been moved to off-site storage in February. I placed the 4 banker boxes against the back wall. I sat in the steel case chair. I did not open the desktop computer. I walked back upstairs at 5:14 in the afternoon. I did not return to the building until Monday, the 1st of April, 2024, at 8:30 in the morning. On Friday, the 5th of April, 2024, at 11:14 in the morning, I received an automated email notification from the Cancer Center Grants Management Office informing me that my National Institutes of Health Electronic Research Administration Commons Institutional Administrator role had been transitioned to the new Research Integrity Operations Team, effective the 1st of April. The email was carbon copied to Dolan Pierce Tremblay. The email noted, in standard human resources boilerplate language, that my group health, dental, and vision plan elections continued without modification under the Cancer Center benefits portfolio. The ERA Commons revocation was the substantive change. I could no longer view active NIH grant submissions or progress reports through institutional channels. I no longer had read access to grant renewal application drafts. The revocation was delivered through the same template the Cancer Center used when an employee retired or transferred internally. There was no exit interview. I had not been terminated. I had been moved. The 8 months from April through November of 2024 became the dwelling phase. I physically reported to Floor B2 every Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday morning. 2 days a week, Mondays and Fridays, I worked from West Newton on the unchanged work-from-home arrangement. The Project Special Initiatives workload was fluid. Dolan asked me to draft a quarterly white paper on emerging research integrity frameworks. He asked me to compile a periodic literature review on cross-institutional compliance benchmarking. He asked me to provide ad hoc support to the Compliance Office Director on outreach engagements. The work had no team, no budget, and no specific deliverable beyond the white paper. I produced the white paper in late August. It ran 38 pages, professional, technically accurate, focused on cross-institutional compliance frameworks generally, and avoiding specific reference to the Cancer Center's own forensic situation. Inwardly, I was finishing the 340-page forensic memorandum titled Western Blot Image Manipulation Pattern Across the Cancer Center, 6 Laboratory NIH-Funded Output, 2014 through 2024, a forensic analysis with NIH Grants Policy Statement, 8.4 and 21 CFR 50, and 56 and 45 CFR Part 94, and NIH Research Integrity Officer Manual Section 9, footnoted citations. I worked on the memo at home on Mondays and Fridays from the basement desk in front of the Sentry safe. I worked on it at the Floor B2 desk during the long stretches between supervisor check-ins. Dolan visited Floor B2 once during the entire 8 months, on Wednesday, the 19th of June, 2024, for 15 minutes to ask about the white paper progress. I made no copy of any institutional file on the Floor B2 desktop computer. I had been careful for 4 years. I remained careful. On Monday, the 18th of March, 2024, 6 days after the Zoom reassignment, I filed the National Institutes of Health Office of Research Integrity Form 1 Misconduct Intake from my West Newton home email through outside counsel Brennan Whitfield Stoddart-Yu, LLP. I had retained the firm in late February through a single 47-minute phone call to founding partner Brennan Whitfield Stoddart-Yu. He was 67 years old. He had attended Cornell College in 1976 and Yale Law School in 1980. He had served 33 years at the Department of Justice Civil Division from 1981 through 2014, beginning as an assistant United States attorney in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania Civil Division, transitioning to Main Justice Civil Division Commercial Litigation Branch in 1994, and serving as Deputy Section Chief of the Civil Division Consumer Protection Branch from 2003 through 2014. He had founded Brennan Whitfield Stoddart-Yu LLP in 2014 with 2 younger partners. He had filed 8 prior qui tam cases against academic medical centers in the decades since. The Form 1 filing attached the 340-page forensic memorandum that I had drafted between October of 2020 and late January of 2024, with footnoted citations to NIH Grants Policy Statement, Section 8.4, 45 CFR Part 94, 42 CFR Part 93, 21 CFR Parts 50 and 56, 31 U.S. Code Section 3729 through 3733, and the NIH Research Integrity Officer Manual, Section 9. On Monday, the 4th of November, 2024, at 9:14 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, I drove the dark blue Subaru Forester with 2 banker boxes on the passenger seat and back seat from West Newton to downtown Boston. The drive was 12 miles via Route 16 East and Interstate 90 East and Atlantic Avenue, 28 minutes with traffic. I parked at the Federal Street garage. I walked 2 blocks east to 100 Federal Street, the offices of Brennan Whitfield Stoddart-Yu LLP on the 16th floor. The building overlooked Boston Harbor and the South Station Rail Terminal. I rode the elevator. I entered the firm's reception area. The receptionist confirmed my appointment. Brennan Whitfield Stoddart-Yu took me into the firm's main conference room on the southwest corner of the 16th floor with a view of Atlantic Wharf. He was wearing a white shirt with no tie, a gold mechanical pencil clipped to the shirt pocket, and reading glasses pushed up on the top of his head. The wall behind his desk was lined with framed prints of 3 federal courthouses where he had prosecuted cases over 4 decades. He sat across from me at the dark walnut conference table. I placed the 2 banker boxes on the floor beside my chair. I extracted the 340-page memo's table of contents. I slid it across the table. He read in complete silence for 38 minutes. He used a small ruler to track lines. He turned the page 11 times. At the end of the 38 minutes, he raised his head. He said, "Mrs. Szymanski-Reeves, this is the cleanest Research Integrity False Claims Act brief I have read in 28 years. We file under seal in the District of Massachusetts within 10 days. The United States Attorney's Office Civil Division, Affirmative Litigation Branch, will see this within 15 days. The National Institutes of Health Office of Research Integrity has been running the parallel track Form 1 investigation since your March 18th filing. The seal will hold for 2 to 4 years. You will not be able to discuss this with anyone other than your husband. Are you prepared for that?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I will have the formal complaint draft to you within 7 days for signature. Drive safely back to West Newton. Get some sleep." I nodded. I picked up my coat. I rode the elevator down to the lobby. I walked the 2 blocks back to the Federal Street garage. I drove home to West Newton via the same route in reverse. I arrived at 4:16 in the afternoon. Stefan was grading Algebra 2 papers at the kitchen table. I sat across from him. I said, "Stefan, the boxes are at the law firm." He said, "Okay, Paul." He said, "Do you want a cup of tea?" I said, "Yes." He made the tea. We did not say anything else about the boxes for 21 months. The Key Tam complaint was filed under seal in the District of Massachusetts on Thursday, the 14th of November, 2024, 10 days after the box's handoff. Assistant United States Attorney Iana Falad Marchetti, 49, of the United States Attorney's Office Civil Division Affirmative Litigation, took intake. The NIH Office of Research Integrity ran its parallel track misconduct investigation under 42 CFR Part 93, with 3 named lab principal investigators receiving Form 1 charges. The Department of Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General joined in April of 2025. 3 other relator co-filers' complaints were consolidated by the United States Attorney's Office Civil Division in early 2025. I knew almost nothing of the case details during the seal. Quarterly Brennan wrote one short email. "Matter remains under seal, no disclosure, will update when posture changes." I continued at the Cancer Center in the Director of Project Special Initiatives role. I produced a second white paper in March of 2025, a third in July, a fourth in November. I attended the Boston Society for Bioethics quarterly seminars. I served on a Cancer Center Diversity and Inclusion Committee that Dolan Pierce Tremblay assigned me to in May. I attended the meetings. I did not raise the Form 1 filing. I did not contact Adelaide. Helena finished her senior year at Tufts and started her first year of medical residency at Tufts Medical Center in July of 2025. Stefan Jr. started his sophomore year at Boston University as a mechanical engineering major. On Wednesday, the 17th of December, 2025, at 11:14 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, I refreshed the Department of Justice Office of Public Affairs press release page on the Lenovo at the West Newton kitchen table. I had been refreshing the page every morning for 3 weeks since Brennan had emailed me on the 23rd of November with a 4-sentence note. Matter approaching final stipulation. You will be notified prior to the OPA release. Stand by. The page loaded at 11:14 with the new release. The headline read, Boston Area Cancer Center agrees to pay $15 million to resolve False Claims Act allegations concerning image manipulation in NIH-funded research publications. The press release ran 3 pages. I read it in complete silence. I read it again. The press release credited the career attorneys of the United States Department of Justice Civil Division, Affirmative Litigation Branch, and the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts, the National Institutes of Health Office of Research Integrity, and the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General. The press release identified the Cancer Center. It did not name any individual relator. It referred to 4 relators in aggregate. The settlement was $15 million Civil False Claims Act, a 3-year corporate integrity agreement, a permanent injunction against the institution's ability to receive certain categories of federal funding without enhanced oversight, a mandatory annual external research integrity audit, and a 5-year probationary research integrity oversight committee. NIHORI debarment of 3 named principal investigators ran from the 1st of January 2026 through the 31st of December 2029. Halverson-Choudhury announced her voluntary CEO transition the same morning, parallel track. Harvard Medical School affiliation review was initiated jointly. The retraction list included the Cell 2016 paper, a Nature Medicine 2019 paper, a Journal of Clinical Oncology 2018 paper, a Blood 2017 paper, a Cancer Cell 2021 paper, and a New England Journal of Medicine 2020 paper. I closed the Lenovo at 11:31. I walked to the home office. I did not open the desk drawer where the Mitutoyo Caliper sat. I came back to the kitchen. I made a second cup of coffee. I called my older sister Jadwiga at 11:47. She was in the Methuen dental practice between patients. I told her in 3 sentences. The Cancer Center settled today. It was the case I was working on. They paid $15 million and 3 of them are debarred. Jadwiga began to cry. I did not. We spoke for 9 minutes. I ended the call. Stefan was at Newton North in his 2nd period Algebra 2 class. Helena was at Tufts Medical Center on a 4th-year medical student rotation. Stefan Jr. was at Boston University studying for a calculus midterm. I did not call my parents until 7:14 that evening. I sat at the kitchen table with Stefan beside me and dialed Tower Hill on the speakerphone. My father answered in Polish-inflected English. I told them both in mixed Polish and English. My Polish is uneven. I defaulted to English for the technical parts. I did not tell my father the full scope. I told my mother the full scope. My mother asked one question. Did you tell Cass's children? I said, no, Mama, no children to tell. She asked one second question. Did the Cancer Center know? I said, yes, Mama, they have known for some time. My mother said nothing for 14 seconds. Then she said, Pol, mierz 2 razy, tnij raz. Then she said nothing else. I ended the call. My father said nothing else after the technical Polish phrase from my wife. Stefan and I sat on the West Newton back patio in the cold December dusk for 23 minutes. Neither of us spoke. The Mitutoyo Caliper remained in the home office desk drawer. The relator share landed in the Brennan Whitfield Stoddart-Yu LLP escrow in January of 2026. My primary insider share was approximately $1.31 million gross. After the firm's 28% contingent fee and the federal 37% tax bracket, the net was approximately $550,000 to $600,000. I directed $1.5 million of the gross, funded ahead of tax through a structured donation arrangement, to the Kazimierz Szymanski Pancreatic Cancer Research Integrity Fund at the MIT Koch Institute for Integrative Cancer Research in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The fund was established in March of 2026. The first chair was awarded in September to Dr. Iolana Pumehana Achebe, 49, MD, PhD, Berkeley, the only candidate on the search shortlist who explicitly committed in her interview to teaching the image forensics methodology that produced the Cancer Center settlement. I directed $300,000 to the National Institutes of Health Office of Research Integrity Public Awareness Journalism Fellowship for Retraction Watch reporting. I retained approximately $130,000 to $200,000 net for Family and Elder Care Reserve. I received 9 private consulting offers between January and September, ranging from $325,000 per year for a Boston area academic medical center advisory role to $850,000 for a national pharmaceutical company Research Integrity Council position. I declined all 9. I kept the rejection letters in a clear plastic sleeve in the Sentry safe beside the original 340-page memo. In October of 2026, I accepted a GS-14 contractor role at NIH Office of Research Integrity in Bethesda, Maryland. A 3-year IPA equivalent senior subject matter expert engagement, $165,000 per year, 3-day workweek, Thursday through Sunday, at home in West Newton. On Sunday, the 22nd of November, 2026, at 1:24 in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time, the day before what would have been Cass's 58th birthday, I drove the dark blue Subaru Forester 11 miles east on Route 16 from West Newton to the main gate of Mount Auburn Cemetery on Mount Auburn Street in Cambridge. I parked at the cemetery main gate. I walked the 46 meters of cemetery path to Section R, Lot 47. The November light was low. The bald cypress trees along the path were rust orange. The wind was light from the northwest. I stood at the bronze plaque on the granite floor marker for 4 minutes. I had brought 2 items, neither of which was a flower. The first item was a single sheet of printer paper printed that morning at the home printer in West Newton, an exact reproduction of the published abstract of the Cell 2016 paper, the predicate publication for Cass's Phase 2 trial enrollment in 2017 and 2018. The abstract had been retracted on the journal's website in February of 2026. The printout was the original pre-retraction abstract as published. The second item was a small, folded sheet of paper, a photocopy of Cass's CHCC 2017 PDA C019 Phase 2 Clinical Trial Enrollment Confirmation Slip dated the 14th of December, 2017. I had made the photocopy on the West Newton home printer earlier that week. I placed the folded printed abstract on the granite plaque face up so that the paper title and authors were visible. I placed the photocopied Phase 2 enrollment confirmation slip on top of the abstract, also face up. I picked up a small flat fieldstone from the small pile that the cemetery groundskeeper sometimes leaves beside Section R floor markers in winter as natural paperweights, a roughly 4-inch flat stone, and I placed it on top of the 2 folded sheets to keep them from blowing away in the November wind. I did not say anything aloud. I did not weep. I turned. I walked the 46 meters back to the Subaru Forester along the cemetery path. I drove 28 miles north on Interstate 495 East and Route 28 to my parents' home on Park Street in Tower Hill, Lawrence, Massachusetts, 41 minutes. My father was in the kitchen reading the Boston Sunday Globe in his recliner with a knit blanket across his knees. My mother was at the stove making bigos. I sat down at the Formica yellow countertop kitchen table. My father, in unprompted Polish, his English steady, but the phrase coming cleaner in Polish that afternoon, said, "Pol, mierć 2 razy, tni raz, nie trzeba przepraszać." I said, in English, "I know, Tata." My mother brought me a bowl of bigos. We ate. We did not discuss Mount Auburn or the settlement or the curriculum or the ORI debarment or the Harvard affiliation review or the December 2025 press release or the 4-year forensic memo or CAS. The 2 folded sheets remained on the bronze plaque for 31 days. On Wednesday, the 23rd of December 2026, the cemetery groundskeeper Ella Briganti found them during a routine post-snowfall sweep of Section R. She placed the granite paperweight back in the cemetery's small ground supply shed. She placed the 2 folded sheets in a small lost property bin in the same shed. The lost property bin was cleared every 6 months. On Thursday, the 25th of June, 2027, the contents of the lost property bin, which by then included the abstract printout, the Phase 2 enrollment confirmation slip photocopy, an unrelated small ceramic angel from a different family's gravesite, 2 faded photographs, and several other items were donated unceremoniously to the Cambridge Goodwill on Brattle Street. The 2 folded sheets were anonymous. No one knew what they were. I did not return for them. The aphorism does not require their return. I am Paulette Marissa Shemansky Reeves. My father walked across the Atlantic Ocean in November of 1971. My brother Cass died at McLean Hospice on the 8th of November, 2018. The Cancer Center settled with the United States Department of Justice for $15 million on the 17th of December, 2025. 6 papers were retracted, 31 were corrected. 3 principal investigators were debarred from federal grant participation for 4 years. No individual senior leader was indicted. That is not an oversight. That is the press release. The aphorism is older than the press release. The aphorism is older than the Cancer Center. The aphorism is older than me. Paul, you measure twice, you cut once. You do not need to apologize for that. I measured twice for 3 years. That was enough. That has to be enough.